My brother inherited the family business. I got stuck with the debt because my mom believed him when he showed her emails proving I had stolen $50,000 from the company account before my dad died. The champagne glass in my hand trembled as Vincent raised his own at Mom's 60th birthday party, his voice booming across the private dining room at Romano's Trattoria. "To the woman who taught us the value of family loyalty," he announced, his eyes finding mine across the crowd of relatives and family friends. "And to honesty, the foundation of everything Dad built." The irony would have been laughable if it hadn't been slowly killing me for 3 years. I watched my mother beam at her golden child, the son who'd saved Dad's restaurant after I'd supposedly tried to rob it blind. Around me, aunts and uncles who'd known me since birth avoided my gaze or offered tight, disapproving smiles. My cousin Maria whispered something to her husband, both of them glancing at me with that familiar mixture of pity and judgment I'd learned to recognize at every family gathering since Dad's funeral. What they didn't know, what Vincent didn't know, was that the family's accountant had pulled me aside 20 minutes earlier, his weathered hands shaking as he pressed a manila envelope into mine. "I should have said something sooner," Frank DeLuca had whispered, his voice breaking with guilt. "I was afraid of losing the account, of causing problems, but I'm retiring next week and I can't die with this on my conscience, Bella. Your brother forged those emails. I saw the metadata when I was doing the estate taxes. I have proof." The envelope felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in my purse. Inside were bank statements, loan documents, and email headers that would prove what I'd suspected but couldn't prove for 3 years. Vincent had stolen from Dad's business, created fake emails using a spoofed account to frame me, then taken out an $85,000 loan in my name to cover his embezzlement. The monthly payments I'd been drowning under, $1,800 that left me eating ramen and sharing a studio apartment with 2 roommates on my teacher's salary, were for a loan I never took out, to cover money I never stole. I raised my glass to Vincent's toast, meeting his eyes directly for the first time in years. He looked momentarily surprised by my smile, probably expecting the usual hunched shoulders and averted gaze of the family disgrace. "To family?" I said clearly, my voice carrying across the sudden silence. "And to truth. It always comes out eventually." Something flickered in Vincent's expression. Uncertainty, maybe a hint of fear, before his confident mask slid back into place. He didn't know that I knew. He didn't know that Frank DeLuca had finally found his conscience. And he definitely didn't know that my college roommate Jennifer Park had graduated top of her class at law school and now specialized in fraud cases. The party continued around me, but I barely tasted the food from our family's kitchen, barely heard the conversations and laughter. My mind was cataloging everything I'd need: the forged loan documents, the fabricated emails, the bank records showing Vincent's withdrawals that matched the stolen amounts. 3 years of being treated like the black sheep, 3 years of Mom's disappointed looks and relatives' whispered judgments, 3 years of financial devastation while Vincent played the hero who'd saved Dad's legacy. I thought about the morning after Dad's funeral, when Vincent had taken me aside in this same dining room and told me Mom had found concerning financial discrepancies in my access to the business account. The way he'd hugged me while twisting the knife, his voice all brotherly concern as he explained that Mom was devastated but trying to be understanding. How he'd convinced her not to press charges because Bella must have been struggling financially and Dad would want us to handle it privately. The genius of it was that I had been struggling financially, paying off student loans from my master's in education, trying to build a life on a teacher's salary in Boston. When Vincent showed Mom those emails requesting wire transfers, claiming I'd been secretly taking money for months before Dad's heart attack, it fit a narrative she wanted to believe. Her daughter had always been too sensitive, too idealistic, choosing teaching over joining the family business. Of course, I'd stolen from my own father when money got tight. The loan Vincent took out in my name was supposedly to expand the restaurant. New kitchen equipment, renovations, marketing. Mom had signed off on it, believing Vincent when he said I'd agreed to be a co-signer as my way of making amends for the theft. I'd tried to fight it, showed her I'd never signed anything, but Vincent had paperwork. He always had paperwork. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer as I watched Vincent work the room, accepting congratulations on the restaurant's success and commiserations about his difficult sister situation. I'd sent her photos of Frank's envelope contents during a bathroom break. Holy shit, Bella. This is textbook fraud. Wire fraud, identity theft, forgery. We're talking federal crimes. How soon can you come to my office? I texted back, Tomorrow morning. How long until we can move? With this evidence? 2 weeks to build the case properly. 1 month maximum. Don't tip him off. The hardest part of the evening was watching Mom fuss over Vincent, straightening his tie and kissing his cheek while he played the devoted son. She'd aged since Dad died, her dark hair now streaked with gray, her hands trembling slightly from the Parkinson's diagnosis she'd received last year. Vincent had positioned himself as her caretaker, driving her to appointments and handling her finances. I'd offered repeatedly to help, but she'd always declined with that wounded look that said she couldn't trust me after what I'd done. Frank DeLuca caught my eye from across the room and gave a small nod. He looked 10 years younger than he had before our conversation, as if confession had lifted a physical weight. I wondered how many sleepless nights he'd spent knowing the truth, how many times he'd almost spoken up at family dinners, watching me be frozen out while Vincent basked in praise. My Aunt Sophia cornered me by the dessert table, her voice syrupy with false concern. "Isabella, dear, you look so thin. Are you eating enough? I know things have been difficult for you financially." The emphasis on the last word made it clear she meant since you stole from your dying father. Vincent mentioned you're still teaching art to elementary students. Such important work, though of course the pay is adequate, I finished firmly, refusing to take the bait. I manage just fine. Well, if you ever need help, I'm sure Vincent would be willing to. I don't need anything from Vincent, I said, my voice sharper than intended. Several relatives turned to look. Excuse me, I need some air. Outside in the alley behind the restaurant, I leaned against the brick wall where Dad used to take smoke breaks before Mom made him quit. The kitchen exhaust carried scents I'd grown up with. Garlic, basil, the yeasty smell of fresh bread. This restaurant had been Dad's dream, built from nothing over 30 years. He'd worked 70-hour weeks, survived 2 recessions, and created something he was proud of, something he'd wanted to leave to both his children. Vincent had taken my half, stolen it with forged signatures and fabricated emails, then stolen my reputation for good measure. My phone buzzed again. Jennifer, BTW, your brother is an idiot. He forged your signature on the loan docs, but didn't match your actual signature from the business partnership agreement. Different handwriting entirely. Also, the stolen emails originated from an IP address traced to Vincent's home computer. This is going to be fun. I smiled in the darkness of the alley. Vincent had always been arrogant, convinced he was the smartest person in any room. He'd coasted through college on charm and Dad's money, took a management position at the restaurant that mostly involved schmoozing customers while Dad did actual work. When Dad started talking about making me a full partner since I had the business degree he lacked, Vincent had panicked. I understood that now. What I didn't understand was how he could live with himself. How he could look Mom in the eye, accept her praise, and let her believe I'd betrayed Dad on his deathbed. How he could watch me scrape together $1, $800 every month for a debt I didn't owe, knowing I was eating pasta and working summer tutoring jobs just to survive. Back inside, the party was winding down. Mom sat at the head table, tired but happy, surrounded by family photos Vincent had arranged as decorations. I noticed he'd carefully excluded any pictures of me and Dad together. All the photos showed Vincent at various restaurant events, Vincent graduating college, Vincent's various achievements. "Bella!" Mom called, waving me over. "Come sit with me before people leave." I settled into the chair beside her and she took my hand. Her grip was weaker than I remembered, trembling from the Parkinson's. "I'm so glad you came tonight," she said softly. "I know things have been strained between us." "Mom, let me finish, sweetheart." She squeezed my hand. "What happened with your father's money? I know you must have been desperate. I wish you'd come to me instead of—" She trailed off, her eyes filling with tears. "But you're still my daughter, and life is too short to hold grudges. Vincent has been encouraging me to forgive you. And he's right. Your father wouldn't want us divided like this." The manipulation was so perfect it took my breath away. Vincent had positioned himself as the magnanimous brother, encouraging forgiveness for crimes I didn't commit, while simultaneously ensuring I remained the family disgrace who needed absolving. And Mom, in her grief and illness, had bought every word. "Thank you, Mom," I managed, my throat tight. 2 weeks, Jennifer had said. 2 weeks and I could tell her the truth. 2 weeks and I could give her back the son she thought she had, replacing him with the criminal he actually was. Vincent appeared beside us, placing a hand on Mom's shoulder. "Everything okay over here?" "Just telling Bella that family forgives," Mom said, smiling up at him. "You were right, honey. We need to move forward." "Absolutely," Vincent agreed. his eyes meeting mine with barely concealed smugness. Bella knows she's always welcome here. This is her family business too, even if she's not actively involved in running it. The barb was subtle but clear. This was his restaurant now. His legacy. His success. I was just the screw-up sister allowed to visit on special occasions. Actually, I said pleasantly, I've been thinking about getting more involved. Now that some time has passed, maybe I could help with the books or marketing. I do have that business degree Dad paid for. Vincent's smile never wavered, but his hand tightened on Mom's shoulder. That's really generous, Bella, but we've got things running pretty smoothly. Besides, I know how busy you are with teaching. Wouldn't want to overwhelm you. Oh, I can manage, I assured him. I'm very good at juggling multiple responsibilities. Always have been. Well, let's table that discussion for another time, he said smoothly, checking his watch. Mom, you look tired. Should I drive you home? As I watched Vincent help Mom gather her things, playing the devoted son, I allowed myself a small smile. He thought he'd won. He thought he'd gotten away with it. He had no idea that Frank DeLuca's conscience had finally cracked, or that his own sloppiness with forged signatures and IP addresses was about to destroy him. The restaurant was emptying, relatives calling goodbye and thanking Vincent for hosting. I hung back, watching him accept praise and handshakes, the king of his stolen kingdom. My phone buzzed one more time. Jennifer. Just got the preliminary forensic report back from my investigator. Your brother has been skimming from the business for 6 years, not just the amounts he blamed on you. We're talking $200, E.B. plus in total. Also found evidence he's been forging your mom's signature on expense reports. Want to guess who's going to prison? I looked up at Vincent, who was laughing with Uncle Marco, probably telling another story about saving the family business. 2 weeks. I could wait 2 weeks. The next morning, I sat in Jennifer's sleek downtown office, my teaching bag still slung over my shoulder from the early dismissal I'd arranged. She'd spread Frank DeLuca's evidence across her conference table like a prosecutor's dream. Bank statements highlighting irregular transfers, loan documents with my forged signature, email metadata showing Vincent's computer as the origin point, and most damning of all, the original business partnership agreement Dad had drawn up showing my actual signature for comparison. Look at this, Jennifer said, pointing to the loan documents. Your real signature has this distinctive loop on the R in Romano. Vincent's forgery is completely different. Rushed, pressed too hard with the pen. Any handwriting expert will confirm this wasn't written by the same person. How did he think he'd get away with it? I asked, staring at the obvious differences. Because nobody was looking, Jennifer replied. Your mom trusted him, the bank trusted him, and you had no idea the loan even existed until you started getting collection notices. By then, he'd already poisoned everyone against you with those fabricated emails. She pulled up something on her laptop. Speaking of which, look at this. The emails your mom saw supposedly came from your personal Gmail account, but the metadata shows they were sent from an IP address registered to Vincent's home Wi-Fi network. He literally sent them from his own computer using a spoofed sender address. Jesus, I breathed. He really thought no one would check. Arrogance, Jennifer said flatly. He assumed your mom wouldn't question him, that you wouldn't fight back, and that the family would close ranks. He was right about everything except one thing. What's that? Frank DeLuca's guilty conscience. Jennifer closed her laptop. And here's the beautiful part. Your brother has been forging your mom's signature too. See these expense reports? She slid over another stack of papers. He's been billing personal expenses to the business and signing your mom's name. Fancy dinners, car payments, even a weekend in Vegas with his girlfriend. We're looking at elder financial abuse on top of the identity theft and fraud charges. My hands trembled as I sorted through the evidence. How much in total? From what Frank's preliminary audit shows? Over $200, $1,000 across 6 years. The $50, $1,000 he blamed on you was just one chunk. He's been systematically robbing his own family business and your mother, covering it up with creative accounting and blaming you when he needed a scapegoat. I thought about Mom's trembling hands, her Parkinson's diagnosis, how she'd mentioned having to be careful with money for her medical expenses. Meanwhile, Vincent had been charging $1,000 dinners to the business account. What do we do first? I asked. Jennifer's smile was sharp. First, we document everything. I've already hired a forensic accountant to go through the restaurant's books with a microscope. Second, we file a police report for identity theft. The loan in your name is a separate crime from the business embezzlement. Third, we wait for Vincent to make another move. What do you mean? He's getting nervous, she said. You asked about helping with the business last night. He knows Frank DeLuca is retiring. If he's smart, which thankfully for us he's not, he's probably worried about what Frank might say or what you might discover. He'll either try to solidify his position or offer you something to keep you away from the books. She was right. 3 days later, Vincent showed up at my apartment. I lived in a cramped studio in Allston that I shared with 2 roommates, both graduate students who'd converted the living room into a bedroom. My room was barely large enough for a twin bed, a dresser, and a desk where I graded student artwork. It was humiliating to live like a college student at 29, but it was all I could afford after Vincent's loan payments ate through my paycheck. "Bella, hey," Vincent said when I opened the door, his smile warm and fraternal. "Sorry to drop by unannounced. Can we talk?" I stepped aside to let him in, watching him take in my living situation with barely concealed satisfaction. This was what he'd reduced me to, and he was enjoying it. "What's up?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Listen, I've been thinking about what you said at Mom's party, about wanting to help with the business." He settled onto my threadbare couch, spreading his arms in a gesture of openness. "And you're right. You do have that business degree. I've been doing everything myself since Dad died, and honestly, I'm burning out." This was the play Jennifer had predicted. Vincent sensed danger and was trying to bring me closer where he could control what I saw. "I'm listening," I said carefully. "What if you came on as a partner? Not ownership, that's complicated with Mom's estate planning, but we could make you a salaried manager. Say $55,000 a year to handle marketing and customer relations. You could keep teaching part-time if you want, or go full-time at the restaurant." It was a calculated offer. Enough money to make my life significantly easier, but not enough to match what a real partnership should pay. And it would keep me busy with customer-facing work, nowhere near the actual books. "That's generous," I said slowly. "What about the loan payments? Would the restaurant cover those?" Vincent's expression flickered. "The loan you co-signed? Bella, that's your responsibility, but the salary would make it easier to manage." "Right, the loan I co-signed." I met his eyes directly. "Funny thing, I don't actually remember signing those documents. Do you?" His smile froze. "What are you talking about? Of course you signed them. I was there when you did it. Were you?" "Because I have no memory of that day. When was it exactly?" "I don't remember the specific date," he said, his voice tightening. "It was 3 years ago, right after Dad's funeral. You were upset, feeling guilty about the money you'd taken. You said you wanted to make amends. By taking out a massive loan in my name while I was supposedly stealing from the business?" I kept my voice pleasant, curious. "That doesn't make much sense, does it? Why would you trust me with more money if I'd just stolen $50,000? You said you wanted to prove you could be responsible." He was improvising now, and it showed. "Look, I don't want to rehash ancient history. I'm trying to offer you an opportunity here, and I appreciate that," I said warmly. "Really generous of you, Vincent. But before I make any decisions, I'd love to see the restaurant's financial records, just to understand what I'd be walking into, you know, as a business decision." The mask cracked completely. "Why would you need to see the books? You don't trust me?" "Of course I trust you," I lied smoothly. "I just like to be informed. It's good business practice. Dad taught me that." Vincent stood abruptly. "You know what? Forget it. I was trying to help you out. Give you a chance to rebuild your reputation, but if you're going to be paranoid and accusatory—" "I wasn't being accusatory," I interrupted. "I just asked to see the books. That's standard for any business partnership discussion." "The answer is no," he said flatly. "The business is running fine without your input. If you're not interested in my very generous offer on the terms I'm proposing, then we have nothing to discuss." I walked him to the door. "One more question before you go. The loan in my name. Do you still have the original paperwork I signed? I'd love to get a copy for my records." His jaw clenched. "It's in storage somewhere. I'll look for it." "Thanks," I said sweetly. "Because my bank has been asking for proof of signature verification. Something about fraud protection policies. Just routine stuff." Vincent's face went pale. "Your bank asked about fraud?" "Oh, just standard questions when you're paying off a large loan. Nothing to worry about." I smiled. "Unless there's something I should be worried about?" He left without answering, nearly running down the stairs to his BMW parked illegally in front of the building. I watched from my window as he sat in the driver's seat for 5 full minutes, phone pressed to his ear, his free hand gesturing frantically. My phone buzzed. "Jennifer, your brother just called his lawyer. We're recording the conversation legally through the wiretap we got approved this morning. Want to guess what he's asking about?" Me. "How to cover up fraud?" Jennifer. "Close. He's asking if there's a statute of limitations on forgery. His lawyer is telling him he's an idiot for discussing this over the phone. I laughed out loud, earning a curious look from my roommate who was studying at the kitchen table. Vincent was panicking. Good. 2 weeks later, I received a call from Mom's doctor. She'd fallen at home and been taken to Massachusetts General Hospital with a broken hip. I arrived to find Vincent already there, pacing the waiting room with his phone pressed to his ear, arguing with someone about money. I don't care what the account balance says, I need access to those funds, he was saying. It's my mother's money. I'm authorized. He spotted me and abruptly ended the call. Bella, Mom's in surgery, they said it'll be another hour. I sat down, pulling out my phone to text my principal that I'd need a substitute for the next few days. What happened? She was reaching for something in a high cabinet and lost her balance. The Parkinson's makes her unsteady. He ran a hand through his hair, and for a moment he looked genuinely worried. They're putting in a pin and plate. Recovery is 6 to 8 weeks. Where will she stay after? I'm hiring a live-in nurse, Vincent said. She can't manage stairs anymore anyway. I've been looking at assisted living facilities, but they're expensive. Medicare doesn't cover everything. Something in his tone made me look up sharply. How expensive? $4,000 to $6,000 a month for a decent place. He sat down heavily beside me. The restaurant's doing well, but not well enough to cover that, plus her medical expenses, plus. He trailed off. Plus the money you've been stealing? I asked quietly. Vincent's head snapped toward me. Around us, other families waiting for news about their loved ones, but no one was paying attention to us. What the fuck are you talking about? I talked to Frank DeLuca before he retired, I said, keeping my voice low and even. He told me about the emails, Vincent. The ones you fabricated from my account. That old man is senile. He gave me the metadata, the IP addresses, the forensic analysis showing you sent those emails from your own computer. I watched the color drain from his face. He also told me about the loan you took out in my name, the one where you forged my signature. Vincent stood so quickly his chair scraped loudly against the floor. You have no proof of any of this. I have extensive proof, I replied calmly. Bank records, handwriting analysis, email headers, timestamps. My lawyer has everything. So does the forensic accountant who's been going through the restaurant's books for the past 2 weeks. Your lawyer? He laughed, but it sounded desperate. You can't afford a lawyer, Bella. You can barely afford rent. Jennifer Park? I said. Remember her? My roommate from BC? She graduated top of her class at law school, specializes in fraud cases. She's working pro bono because we're friends and because she really doesn't like people who forge signatures and steal from their dying fathers. Vincent's phone slipped from his hand, clattering onto the hospital floor. He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You're bluffing. Am I? I pulled out my phone and opened my email, showing him the PDF titled Evidence Compilation, Romano v. Romano. This is going to the DA's office tomorrow morning. Wire fraud, identity theft, forgery, elder financial abuse, federal and state charges. My lawyer estimates you're looking at 8 to 12 years in federal prison. You wouldn't do this to your own brother, he whispered. To Mom, it would destroy her. You already did this to me, I said, my voice hardening. You destroyed my reputation, my relationship with Mom, my financial stability. You let me pay $1,800 every month for 3 years on a loan I never took out while you spent our father's money on bottle service and Vegas trips. You made Mom think I stole from Dad while he was dying. You want to talk about destroying families? A nurse appeared in the waiting room doorway. Romano family? Your mother is out of surgery. She's in recovery now. We both stood, but I grabbed Vincent's arm. We're not done. Mom needs you functional right now, so I'm giving you 24 hours. Tomorrow night, you're going to confess everything to her. Everything. The forged emails, the stolen money, the loan in my name, the 6 years of embezzlement. All of it. And if I don't, then I file the criminal complaint Wednesday morning and the police arrest you at the restaurant during the lunch rush. Your choice. Tell her yourself or have her find out when the FBI raids your home. His face twisted with rage and fear. You vindictive bitch. No, I said quietly. I'm the daughter you tried to destroy. There's a difference. Mom was groggy from anesthesia but smiled when she saw us. My babies, she murmured. Both here. We're here, Mom, I said, taking her hand. The surgery went well. You're going to be fine. Vincent stood on the other side of her bed, silent and pale. Mom looked between us, confused by the tension. What's wrong? Did something happen? Nothing, Mom, Vincent said quickly. Everything's fine. Actually, I said. Vincent has something important to tell you. Don't you, Vincent? He met my eyes over Mom's bed, and I saw the moment he realized I wasn't bluffing. This was happening. One way or another, the truth was coming out. Not now, he said hoarsely. She just had surgery. You're right, I agreed. Tomorrow, at the restaurant, when you close up. I'll be there too. We're going to have a family meeting. Mom's eyes were already closing, the pain medication pulling her back under. Family meeting, that's nice. My baby's working together. Vincent's hands were shaking as he adjusted Mom's blanket. He looked at me one more time, and I saw something crumble behind his eyes. The realization that this was real, that I had evidence, that his house of cards was collapsing. 24 hours, I repeated quietly, or I make the call. The restaurant was closed when I arrived Tuesday night, but the lights were on in the back office. Vincent's BMW sat alone in the parking lot. I'd asked Jennifer to wait nearby in case things got ugly, her phone ready to call the police if I texted the code word. Vincent was sitting at Dad's old desk, surrounded by financial documents. He'd been drinking. I could smell the whiskey from the doorway. When he looked up, his eyes were red-rimmed. I've been going through everything, he said, his voice hollow, trying to figure out how to fix this. You can't fix it, I said, pulling up a chair. You can only tell the truth. Do you have any idea what this will do to Mom? She just got out of surgery, Bella. She's 60 years old with Parkinson's and a broken hip. You want to destroy her last good memory of her son? You destroyed it yourself, I replied. I'm just making sure she knows who really did it. Vincent slammed his hand on the desk. I was trying to save the business. When Dad died, we had $75 in debt he'd hidden from everyone. The restaurant was hemorrhaging money. If I hadn't acted fast, we would have lost everything. So you stole from the business? Framed me? I borrowed from the business. He corrected desperately. I was going to pay it back once things stabilized. And I didn't frame you. I needed someone to take the heat while I restructured things. Mom would never have approved the loan if she thought it was to cover my emergency measures. Your emergency measures? I repeated flatly. Is that what you call embezzling over $200? Rosoniers? Forging my signature? Creating fake emails to convince Mom I was a thief? It was never supposed to go this far. He stood abruptly, nearly knocking over the whiskey bottle. You were supposed to come work at the restaurant after college. You and me running it together like Dad wanted. But you chose teaching instead, chose your high-minded art education career over family responsibility. So yes, when the business needed saving, I took your share too. I earned it. The entitlement was breathtaking. You earned it by destroying my reputation and stealing my identity. I kept the family business alive, he shouted. That's worth more than your hurt feelings. The door opened behind me. Mom stood there in her wheelchair, Jennifer pushing her into the office. Vincent's face went white. Mom, what are you? Jennifer picked me up from the hospital, Mom said, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. She told me there were things I needed to hear. Vincent, what is your sister talking about? What emails? What fake signatures? I looked at Jennifer, who nodded slightly. We'd decided that morning that Mom needed to hear this directly, not secondhand. She'd been discharged that afternoon, and Jennifer had explained enough to convince her to come. Mrs. Romano, Jennifer said professionally, I'm Bella's attorney. Over the past 3 weeks, we've uncovered evidence that your son Vincent has been engaging in systematic fraud and embezzlement from your family business. He forged Bella's signature on loan documents, fabricated emails to make you believe Bella had stolen from the business, and has been stealing from the restaurant for approximately 6 years. She placed a folder on the desk. This contains bank statements, forensic analysis, and documentation of over $200 in fraudulent transfers. We've also found evidence that Vincent has been forging your signature on expense reports, charging personal purchases to the business account. Mom's hands trembled on the wheelchair's armrests. Vincent? Tell me this isn't true. Mom, I can explain. The emails Bella supposedly sent? Jennifer interrupted. They came from Vincent's home computer. We have the IP addresses and metadata. The loan Bella has been paying off for 3 years. Vincent forged her signature. We have handwriting analysis confirming it. The $50 you thought Bella stole? Vincent withdrew it himself to cover previous embezzlement. Mom turned to me, her face stricken. You've been paying that loan? All this time? $100 to $800 a month, I confirmed quietly. For a loan I didn't take out, to cover money I didn't steal, while being treated like a criminal at every family gathering. She looked at Vincent, waiting. He opened his mouth several times, but nothing came out. The lies that had come so easily for 3 years were impossible now. with the evidence spread across the desk and his mother's devastated eyes on him. "I was trying to save the business," he finally whispered. "Dad left us with massive debt. I did what I had to do." "You framed your sister," Mom said, her voice breaking. "You let me believe my daughter was a thief. You watched her struggle and suffer and said nothing." "I was going to fix it," Vincent insisted. "Once the business was stable, I was going to tell you the truth. Make it right." "You were never going to tell the truth." I cut him off. "You were going to keep milking the business until there was nothing left. When you showed up at my apartment 2 weeks ago, it wasn't to bring me into the partnership. It was to control what I saw, keep me away from the real books." Jennifer pulled out another document. "This is the police report Bella filed yesterday for identity theft. The DA's office has accepted the case. Vincent, you're being charged with wire fraud, identity theft, forgery, and elder financial abuse. There's also a parallel federal investigation for the wire fraud components." "Federal?" Vincent's voice cracked. "You're having me arrested?" "You committed federal crimes," Jennifer said simply. "This isn't a family dispute anymore. Multiple felonies were committed over several years. The state has an interest in prosecution regardless of the victim's wishes." Mom was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. I moved to her side, kneeling beside her wheelchair. "Mom, I'm sorry you had to find out like this, but I need you to know. I never stole from Dad. I never took that money. Every word Vincent told you was a lie." She grabbed my hand with surprising strength. 3 years, she whispered. "I treated you like a criminal for 3 years. I looked at you with disappointment, shut you out of family decisions, let everyone believe you'd betrayed your father." Her shoulders shook with sobs. "Oh, Bella, what have I done?" "It's not your fault," I said, though part of me would always carry the wound of her easy willingness to believe Vincent over me. He was convincing. Vincent started moving toward Mom, hands outstretched. "Mom, please, I'm still your son." "Don't touch me," she said sharply. He froze. "I don't know who you are anymore. My son wouldn't do this. My son wouldn't destroy his sister's life and let his mother live in ignorance while he stole from her. The restaurant is worth approximately $800, $0, Jennifer continued, all business. The stolen funds plus the fraudulent loan plus interest and damages total roughly $320,000. Vincent, you have 3 options. 1. Plead guilty, accept full restitution obligations, and face sentencing. 2. Fight the charges and likely face maximum sentences when convicted with this evidence. 3, she paused meaningfully, sign over the restaurant completely to your mother and sister. Enter a guilty plea with our recommended sentencing, and your family won't pursue additional civil damages. That's the entire business, Vincent said desperately. I'd have nothing. You were supposed to have nothing, I reminded him. You stole everything you have. This way, you serve less time and Mom gets to keep the business Dad built. Mom looked between us. Her face aged a decade in the past 10 minutes. Vincent, did you do these things? All of them? Tell me the truth now. He collapsed back into the chair, his head in his hands. For a long moment, the only sound was Mom's quiet crying. Finally, he nodded. I did it, he whispered. All of it. The emails, the signatures, the money. I took the loan out in Bella's name because my credit was maxed out. I blamed her because I needed to cover my tracks. I've been skimming from the business since Dad got sick because I had debts he didn't know about. Gambling debts, credit cards, bad investments. It just kept getting worse, and I kept having to take more to cover the previous theft. Oh, Vincent, Mom breathed. I'm sorry, he said. But he was looking at Mom, not me. Even now, even caught, his concern was for her judgment of him. I never meant for it to go this far. I thought I could fix it before anyone found out. You're not sorry you did it, I said coldly. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. Jennifer placed a document in front of Vincent. This is the transfer agreement. Sign it now, or we proceed with full prosecution and civil suits. You have 5 minutes to decide. What about the charges? He asked desperately. If I sign, they go away? No, Jennifer said. You're going to prison regardless. The federal charges aren't negotiable. But if you sign, we'll recommend a lighter sentence and your family won't sue you into personal bankruptcy. Your mother will get to keep her home, and the business stays in the family. You fight this, and we take everything. Vincent looked at Mom one last time, searching for any softness, any sign she might intervene, but her face was stone. Sign it, Mom said firmly. Sign everything. You owe your sister that much. His hand shook as he picked up the pen. I watched him sign away the restaurant, The business he'd claimed to be saving, the empire he'd built on lies and stolen money. Each signature was like watching years of injustice finally balancing on a scale. When he finished, Jennifer collected the documents. The transfer will be filed tomorrow. The DA wants you for booking at 9 a.m. Thursday. I suggest you use that time to get your affairs in order. Vincent just sat there, broken and silent. Mom turned her wheelchair toward the door. Bella, take me home. I don't want to look at him anymore. As Jennifer pushed Mom toward the exit, I stopped at the door and looked back at my brother one last time. He looked up, his face streaked with tears. You should have just told the truth 3 years ago, I said quietly, but you chose to destroy me instead. Now you get to live with that choice. Bella, please. No, I cut him off. You don't get to ask me for anything ever again. You're not my brother anymore. You're just a criminal who happens to share my DNA. I walked out of Dad's office for the last time, leaving Vincent alone in the wreckage he'd created. 6 months later, I stood in the newly renovated kitchen of Romano's Trattoria, watching the lunch rush through the service window. Mom sat at a corner table in her wheelchair, reconciling receipts with the smile I hadn't seen since before Dad died. The Parkinson's tremors were better controlled now that she could afford the premium medication without Vincent skimming from her accounts. Vincent was serving a 7-year sentence in federal prison for wire fraud and identity theft, with another 4 years suspended pending full restitution. The state charges for forgery and elder abuse added 3 years to run consecutively. He would be 45 before parole eligibility. His girlfriend had left him within a week of his arrest, and most of his friends vanished once they realized he was actually guilty. I'd quit teaching and taken over as general manager of the restaurant. With Jennifer's help, we'd restructured the business, brought in a reputable accountant, and implemented systems to prevent future embezzlement. The restaurant was finally profitable in the way Dad had always dreamed. Honest profit, earned through good food and loyal customers. Mom had apologized approximately 1,000 times, but I'd told her the truth. Vincent had been convincing, and grief makes people vulnerable to manipulation. We were rebuilding our relationship slowly, honestly. Some wounds heal faster than others. The forensic audit had uncovered $267,000 in total theft. Vincent would be paying restitution for the rest of his life at $500 per month once he was released from prison, a fraction of the $100 or $800 I'd paid monthly on his fraudulent loan. But I found poetic justice in knowing he'd spend decades repaying the family he'd betrayed. Uncle Marco approached my table during a slow afternoon, his expression apologetic. Bella, I owe you an apology. All those times I looked at you like you'd disappointed the family. He shook his head. I should have asked your side of the story. Most people should have, I agreed. But Vincent was very convincing. Still, Marco insisted. Family should have more faith. Your father would have believed you. That hurt in a different way, because it was true. Dad would have investigated, would have demanded proof, would have protected me. But Dad was gone, and I'd had to protect myself. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. Vincent's parole hearing denied. Earliest review is 2032. Also, his cellmate is apparently teaching him humility. Reports say he cries a lot. I smiled. I should have felt guilty about that satisfaction, but I didn't. Vincent had stolen 3 years of my life, my reputation, my relationship with my mother, and $64,800 in loan payments I couldn't recover. He'd let me eat ramen and share a studio apartment while he spent Dad's money on bottle service. He'd looked me in the eye at family gatherings and accepted praise for taking care of things while I was frozen out. He was getting exactly what he deserved. The front door opened and Frank DeLuca walked in, moving slowly but steadily. He'd fully retired now, spending his days fishing and playing with his grandchildren. But he came by Romano's at least once a week, always apologizing for not speaking up sooner. Bella, he called. Your mother around? In the office, I replied. Go on back. He paused at my table. You know, your father used to say you were the smart one. Practical, like your grandmother. Vincent had the charm, but you had the character. He patted my shoulder. Anthony would be proud of what you've done here, taking something broken and making it right. After he left, I pulled out my phone and looked at the photo I'd saved from 3 years ago. Me and Dad at my college graduation, both of us smiling, his arm around my shoulders. I'd hidden that photo during the years of being the family disgrace, too painful to look at. Now it was my phone's wallpaper. I figured it out, Dad, I whispered to the image. It took a while, but I figured it out. The restaurant filled up for the dinner rush, regulars calling out greetings, families laughing over plates of Dad's recipes. This was what he'd wanted. Not the fraud or betrayal, but this. Food, family, honesty. I'd finally given it back to him, even if he wasn't here to see it. Mom rolled up beside me in her wheelchair. Stop brooding. We have a full house tonight, and Table 7 is asking about you specifically. That nice detective who helped with Vincent's case. I looked over to see Detective Rodriguez waving at me, seated with what appeared to be his family. He'd been instrumental in building the case against Vincent, treating me with respect when I filed the initial report instead of dismissing it as a family squabble. Go say hello, Mom urged, and maybe mention we have that excellent Chianti he liked. I walked over to their table, professional and smiling. This was my restaurant now, my family's legacy, cleaned of Vincent's poison and restored to what it should have been. He'd tried to take everything, and instead he'd lost it all. The detective introduced me to his wife and kids, praising the food and thanking me again for my bravery in coming forward. A lot of victims stay silent, especially with family, he said. You did the right thing. The only thing, I corrected. Some people mistake silence for forgiveness. They're not the same thing at all. As I returned to the kitchen, my phone buzzed with an email notification. The prison had forwarded a message from Vincent, requesting to add me to his visitor list. I deleted it without reading past the subject line. He'd made his choices 3 years ago when he forged my signature, when he fabricated those emails, when he watched me bleed financially and socially and did nothing. Now he could live with the consequences of those choices, alone in a cell, knowing his sister had everything he'd tried to steal. That evening after closing, Mom and I shared a bottle of Dad's favorite wine in the empty restaurant. Do you think you'll ever forgive him? She asked quietly. No, I said simply. Some things don't deserve forgiveness. Vincent didn't make a mistake, Mom. He made calculated decisions over and over for years. He destroyed my life deliberately to protect his lies. That's not something I'm interested in forgiving. She nodded slowly. I understand. I'm not sure I can forgive him either, and I'm his mother. That's a terrible thing to admit. It's an honest thing, I corrected. Vincent spent 3 years teaching this family what betrayal looks like. Now he gets to spend 7 years learning what consequences look like. We sat in comfortable silence, the ghosts of better times hovering around us. Dad's recipes still on the menu, his photograph on the wall, his dream alive despite his son's best efforts to destroy it. The family business was saved. Not by Vincent's lies and theft, but by my stubborn refusal to let him win. He'd gambled that I wouldn't fight back, that I'd accept the role of family scapegoat quietly, that I'd never discover the truth. He'd lost everything on that bet, and I'd never felt better about winning.